Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Bobby Gross, Mesa County Clerk. I want to start and say thank you for the Commissioners for holding the special session to discuss and express our concerns over the proposed modifications of the mail processing center in Mesa County. The modification of the mail processing will send the mail over 250 miles each way to be sorted in Denver and sent back to Mesa County and the Western region for delivery. Currently, our mail, you send out anything in Mesa County, it's sorted here and sent out for delivery. It doesn't go 250 miles down the road just to come back. I first heard of the proposed modifications during a broadcast on a Saturday morning in the early February. The news coverage was brief and did not give specific information. I had researched when the USPS was going to hold public comments. It was disappointing to say the least because during an election, we constantly are in communication with the USPS to make sure there's no issues, our ballots are delivered efficiently. And not at any time during those conversations that we had with the post office did they mention the modification. The public hearing at CMU, the panel seemed to be disengaged and disinterested in the discussion, merely informing the attendees about the upcoming changes without seeking input from the stakeholders or partners before meeting and addressing concerns. I reached out to several clerks that were unaware of the changes happening. It affects all the clerks within the Western region as well. And it definitely impacts their counties. If proposed, the modification is approved. It not only affects Mesa County, it'll affect the Western region and small rural jurisdictions that already experience a lack of service and will only increase that lack of service that they receive. Given the geographical and logistic challenges presented with the mountainous terrain between Denver and the Western Slope and compounded by frequent closures of I-70, delays are common and expected to persist. The claim of the mail delivery times could be reduced to 2 days under the condition seem impractical and unsupported by evidence. The implications of the proposed change would significantly impact our process, not only in elections, it'll impact motor vehicle, recording, and liquor licensing. With over 100,000 voters in our jurisdiction, the rerouting could significantly delay voting process. By law, the clerk must ensure chain of custody. Currently, our vendor ships our ballots to our hub here. We go out, we verify the seal, we make sure that our vendors sent us what they said they sent us before they're delivered to the citizens of Mesa County. With the proposed change, we would have to go to Denver and hope that there's not a delay in delivery. Any delay in the processing threatens to disrupt our ballot delivery and receipt, possibly disenfranchising thousands of voters. Legally, the clerk is required to attempt to resolve any signature discrepancies with missing signatures, and we have an 8-day window from the time the election ends, and typically we get most of our signature discrepancies on election day. So we have to send out letters, and we have 8 days to cure those letters. If we have a delay in mail, it can result in legal referral to the district attorney for investigation. For other divisions I mentioned earlier, a delay in the mail can result in late fees for the citizens. The clerk has no discretion to waive any of those late fees. In any division that deals with any type of tight deadlines, this will impact their processes as well. Ultimately, the clerk, it doesn't affect just the clerk, it delivers, we have medications that are delivered to our veterans, and they rely on that, and it could significantly delay potential medications that they need affecting their health. Given the significant impacts of the proposed changes, we urge the USPS to reconsider and invest in our hub here in Grand Junction.
Thank you, Bobby. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions right now?
Not at this time. Yeah, not at this time.
Okay. Does the public have any comments at this time? You can come forward and state your name for the record at the podium, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Roger Daniels, I am a postal worker and also our union local president. I want to thank you for taking consideration for this. I think this is very important. Bobby said a lot. I don't have a lot more to say. I would just be reiterating what she says. I myself am a veteran. The VA requires you to get your prescriptions through the Postal Service. On a personal note, I had an incident where the medication stayed in Denver for 6 days. I had to go to the VA. They gave me, 2 weeks worth of medicine, and then it comes 2 or 3 days later. I am afforded the opportunity to do that. If someone lives in Bedrock, Colorado, they are not afforded that opportunity to be able to go right to the VA. This is very important, we believe, and we believe that this will slow down the mail significantly more than what the Postal Service is saying. They haven't been transparent through this whole process. Haven't given us any data. They haven't done. I think they're just checking off boxes, but I think with your help and other people's help and representatives' help, we can put a stop to it, and that would be great. And I just wanted to thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public have public comment? Come forward and state your name to the record, please.
My name is Shane McDonald. I'm a postal worker and also the vice president of our area local. Like they said, there's a lot of different problems with this. One of the things that I see on a day-to-day basis is I do the business reply mail. Any mail that gets forwarded goes to Colorado Springs already, gets returned back to Grand Junction for delivery. We see ballots all the time that have forwards in the system. Because ballots don't forward, they get returned to sender. To go to Colorado Springs and come back, it's taking up to 7 to 8 days just for that one trip back. This processing change that they're proposing in the Postal Service will do the same thing with all of our mail, not just the centralized forwarding system. Not only do I think that we should support this and do whatever we can to stop this procedure, we should also try to get the computerized forwarding system back into local hands. There's also a proposal for local transportation and optimization. Right now, that's proposed to happen in September, right before elections. That proposal will stop afternoon collections for a lot of the surrounding areas. And all of the mail that is collected on the window from the carriers, from the blue boxes in the neighborhoods, that mail will sit overnight in the other neighboring towns before being brought back in the morning for processing, causing another 1-day delay. But I would just like to thank you, and I guess that's it.
Thank you, Shay.
Hello, my name's Ron Perez. Excuse me, retired postal worker. I just wanted to point out one thing. Right now, there's a bill, SB 100, on the Colorado floor. It would require all semis to go 55 miles an hour and only in the right lane from Morrison all the way through Glenwood Canyon. Currently, there is a reduction through Glenwood Canyon. They want to increase this all the way to Morrison. That will slow down all trucks. They have to be in the right lane, 55 only. They're not factoring this in at all. Now, if they add that time in, then you're also add in a little weather, a little traffic, a little anything. And now you're getting drivers that are going to time out. Currently, I believe they're allowed to drive 10 or 11 hours. There is also a bill on the, I believe on the federal side that they're looking at following California and Oregon or Washington's position, which is to reduce driver times to only 8 or 9 hours. So if you factor those two things in, if they both go through, I could see the 55 going through pretty for sure, because the safety, we've all seen what happened last year or a year or so ago with the tragedy of the accident, the runaway truck coming through there. So it's pretty guaranteed they're going to try and slow things down there. You had those delays in there. There's no way they're going to get this mail through back and forth on time. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else from the public have comment on this item? Come forward and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Randy Spidell, and I'm not a postal worker, never have been. I'm a postal user. And I believe that this is a giant mistake. I appreciate your draft letter. It spoke to the things that I think in Colorado are exceptionally important, especially voting. This is happening across the country. There are many distribution centers proposed to be closed and send mail far afield before returning for local delivery. I believe it's a plot to end the Postal Service and to have only private services. When they were here and gave a talk at CMU, they provided no numbers, no analysis, and no costs. They just kept saying, well, do you have any comments? Do you have any comments? And they didn't give us enough to comment on. And I spoke at that meeting as well. There are two things that I'd like to suggest because I really think your letter is very good. In the middle of the second page, the proposed changes would also negatively impact other Mesa County services provided to the most vulnerable populations of our community. I'm here today as a private citizen, voter in Mesa County. Some of that is not mentioned is the Mesa County libraries provide not only words on wheels to deliver library materials to those who are mobility challenged, but they also provide books by mail beyond the jurisdiction of the words on wheels. And so therefore, perhaps the Mesa County Library would be adversely impacted by having to send a book from here to Denver to Loma, and then the Loma person sends it back to Denver to send it back to the library system for the next person who wants it, whether they're local or whether they're someone who needs the book by mail. And finally, I'd like to suggest that you consider addressing the letter to the Postal Board of Governors and not to Louis DeJoy. Louis DeJoy has zero background in the Postal Service. I believe he's the leader of the plot. He wants trucks only, truck service, truck contractors. And that's not going to work here because of Glenwood Canyon, because of I-70, because of a number of different things. So I think we need to make sure our voice through your great letter is heard by them back east.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Randy. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment? Come forward and state your name to the record, please.
Tell him the short one in the room. My name is Teresa Mannion. I'm the national president for the Auxiliary to the American Postal Workers Union. In that position, I have had a lot of time to see some of these changes happening around the country. And Randy's right, it's not a single thing. They want 60 units, 60 sorting positions all around the country. However, we have been successfully fighting this off in certain areas. And it's through people like you voicing your concern of what would happen to our community because we're an exception. We're not 60 miles away from Denver, where it's an hour difference in transportation. We're 255 miles from the plant on the other side of Denver, which if you've ever driven that on some of the busier days takes hours to get there. It's insane to think that that's not going to impact our mail. And I'm a retired postal worker for 35 years. I can tell you honestly, in my opinion, 3 to 5 days delay of local mail is exactly what will happen here. And we deserve better in Western Colorado. We don't need Denver taking us over at every turn there is. We can stand up for ourselves and we can fight this. And I appreciated so much that the senators put in a letter, and it actually mentioned Grand Junction, by the way, as one of the places that was being horribly wronged by this. The people here, and they're right, it's not just Grand Junction, it's not just Mesa County, it's all of Western Colorado. We sort mail for 81504 or 815 zip codes to 814 zip codes and 816 zip codes. That includes everything except for Durango, basically, because they're in 813 region. From Vail Pass to Utah, from Wyoming to New Mexico, we sort mail here in Grand Junction and disperse it. It's not just gonna be Grand Junction's mail slowed down. In fact, I think the outlying areas like Colburn, Delta, Montrose, Loma maybe, probably not because they're close enough to us, we can help them. But those smaller little towns who will be impacted by the changes in transportation will add a day to that time. So it's not just big Grand Junction here, it's all of us that are being affected. And darn it, this thing just recorded everything I said over my notes, so I apologize.
You're fine.
But 31 jobs are gonna be lost here in Grand Junction.
You can keep going.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
31 jobs will be lost in Grand Junction. Our jobs start at about 50,000, go up a little over $100,000 with seniority and depends on the skills of the position. That's a lot of money to lose. And I listened today to all of the things we're doing to try to help keep jobs and make it so people don't lose their homes here. Why are we letting 31 jobs go away in Grand Junction that are good paying long-term jobs? The other thing I wanted to show you, and if you want a copy, I'll provide a copy, but in about 10 days' time, we collected over 4,000 signatures. There were 10 of us collecting signatures. It was heartening. I mean, absolutely heartening to stand outside the post office and have people kind of fighting over who gets to sign next and taking our petitions out of our hands and passing them down. We didn't even have to say anything because they were making our cases for us, because the citizens, 4,000 of us, don't want this change to the Postal Service, and it doesn't have to happen. Because if people like you stand up with us, we can prevent this. And I want to say a special thank you to Bobby Gross. She was one of the people that was speaking and had authority at that public hearing. And I was standing in the back of the room with someone that has an office just down the hallway from Louis DeJoy. And he made comments about her comments. And it was very positive that he was hearing everything she was saying. And it was so heartening to hear him actually admit that maybe this isn't a good idea. But we have to prove to more than the people that were here that this is. So your letter and stuff is going to help us a bunch. And thank you so much for having this special hearing. And we really do appreciate everything you're doing. And if you want all these pages, I'll copy them and you can have a copy, but I bet you don't.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to make public comment? Come forward. You can state your name to the record, please.
My name's Bill Mann, and I live 27 and a half road. So anyways, I'm just here on, I was hoping there'd be a lot more people here, but senior citizens, I don't know if you've considered them. I'm a senior citizen and I rely on checks coming in the mail and different things, medicines. And already I've had things that don't show up for 2 weeks to actually had one didn't show up a check for 30 days. And I just think it would be a big mistake to slow it down anymore. I'll survive, but I think there's a lot of people out there that it would hugely affect how they get their payments and things in the mail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public have public comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion.
Yeah, I think this is a very serious situation. It would be a disaster for our elections. as well as all the other renewals that happen in the clerk's office. Now penalties will be charged to people. Nobody can undo that. I think the veterans, to first say they have to have their medicine via mail and then send it on a joyride up to Denver and back, that makes no sense at all. They already have enough difficulties as it is. And when people come into DHS to get public assistance, they're in crisis. That's the only reason they're there. And when you're in crisis and then you have to wait 10 days for the card to get mailed to you is ridiculous. One thing I would point out in the last paragraph on the second page, I believe that number should be 46,000. That's the number I've been quoting. So we just need to confirm that before we actually send this off. That 46,000 individuals are receiving some form of assistance and about 1,500 new applications a month. That's 1,500 cards now that have to go to Denver and then come back. While I appreciate the Postal Service looking out for efficiencies, this is the opposite of efficient.
Yeah, and on that note, I enjoy people and organizations striving for efficiency, but it doesn't seem quite efficient to take a piece of mail that's intended for Grand Junction, from Grand Junction to go to Denver and back. And in addition, and this is just more anecdotal, but I do enjoy sending thank you notes to people who arrive a day or two after an event rather than 2 weeks and they forget why I'm thanking them. So anyways, I completely support the letter. Clerk Gross, thank you so much for all your work on this. And to the community coming out and speaking. I know you guys are small right here, but you represent a broad group and we understand that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Clerk. You've really expanded on this issue and really shown the nuances. And if we can convey what we have to do according to law and state statute to the post office, I think that really can change a big part of this conversation. I think nationally, the senators and representatives have been advocating for Mesa County. It's just really important that our local government is communicating really the hard effects of what this policy would do. And so I'm just grateful for DHS that they could really express the economic impacts for our most vulnerable in Mesa County and our veterans department, that they can also express what this would mean for veterans. And then of course, our clerk, we really appreciate this. Most people don't understand what kind of pressure you're under with state statute and the fines that you would have to impose on for late fees. And this just really shows a full picture of what something like this could do for our community and do to our community. And so we really appreciate all of your hard work on this. I think it's easy when you might be at the top of something and you're making a decision, but when you see how it affects people on the ground, it may take a different turn. And we just really hope that they reconsider this for our residents here in Mesa County. So we appreciate you guys all coming and speaking about this really important issue. Okay. All right. So if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as entered into the record.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.